Hey guys, Paul here. So today I wanted to talk about an issue that I've noticed in the Yu-Gi-Oh community recently, and that is the divide between paper physical Yu-Gi-Oh TCG players and exclusively Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel or digital players, and why I personally think it's all a little bit ridiculous. So I should probably have a bit of a disclaimer here. I think that this is ultimately a vocal minority thing, right? I don't think that many people really believe this, or at least I certainly hope not. But it is something that I've noticed in like comments on my own videos, and so I looked into it a little bit more, just on like Reddit and Twitter and stuff. And I definitely think that there's like something here, so I wanted to talk about it and get people's opinions as well. So the reason why I noticed it is because I've gotten comments on this channel sometimes when I do ban list videos or discussions about card prices or just the state of the game or whatever. And sometimes people will say things like, well, just stick to Master Duel, that's all you know, or you switching to Master Duel ruined this channel for me. That is a comment that I actually read the other day, which was very surprising. Or, just these things that sort of insinuate that, like, I have betrayed the TCG somehow, or that because I play a lot more Master Duel now, that my opinions on the TCG are unwarranted or invalid, or something like that. And so, I first of all think I should probably dispel that. I mean, like, I still play the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG. I literally, in front of me right now, I have several different decks built. I am currently building several different decks. I'm adapting my Rescue Ace deck for the new ban list. I've built Vanquish Souls. I've built, like, new recent things. I do keep up. I watch YCS streams. I follow, pack openings and product news and all that stuff. So I'm definitely still very engaged with the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG. But I do play Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel a lot as well. And it's mostly, out of convenience, right? It's a game that I can sit at home and play on my computer, so that's obviously really nice. I get my Yu-Gi-Oh fix that way on a more daily basis, whereas locals is something that's only like usually once a week. So I think that they obviously both have their ups, their downs, but the things that I notice people talk about sort of suggest that like one is definitively superior or inferior, and also that if like, you choose to play the inferior game, then you are less of a person, I almost want to say, but less of a Yu-Gi-Oh player. So the arguments that you typically will hear people lobby against Master Duel is that the best of one format makes it bad, right? Like if you can only play Yu-Gi-Oh in best of one, you must not know how to side deck or, something like that. There's also the Max C thing where it's like, oh, I can never play Yu-Gi-Oh with Max C. If you play Yu-Gi-Oh with Max C in this format, you're a peasant, you don't really know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh. On a bit of a side note, I've actually even seen people start to insinuate that the Yu-Gi-Oh OCG itself is invalid, that OCG players aren't as good, or that they're just guinea pigs playing a beta game of Yu-Gi-Oh because like they have Max C, and so they just use it as like a testing ground for the TCG. I've heard some interesting like arguments and claims and stuff about that get a little bit extreme and kind of like mean-spirited to me. But I think that also something that gets kind of spoken about Master Duel is just that because the card pool is behind, that means you're not playing real Yu-Gi-Oh! You're playing outdated Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is somehow bad. And then some things that you'll hear people say about the TCG is that, well, you're a sucker because you are paying Konami for these cards, right? Haha, paying for singles, how silly, right? Because, in Master Duel, I guess you can craft things or grind for gems, but it's really free to play unless you just choose to pay for it. And so apparently if you play the TCG, that must be a bad thing. Their words, not mine. That must be a bad thing because, you are paying for cards, and that means that you're being duped by Konami somehow. Or also just that, if you play the TCG, it must mean that there's something like wrong with the TCG format. Anytime the TCG has a format that people seem to be complaining about, there are people who will come over and say like, well, Master Duel is better for this reason or that. And I'm gonna be honest, I just think it's all so crazy because I've never really seen Yu-Gi-Oh players as like separate really like factions per se. I mean, I've always kind of just talked about Yu-Gi-Oh players as Yu-Gi-Oh players. I kind of feel like we're all in this together, right? Like Yu-Gi-Oh is ultimately the same game no matter where you play it. Like fundamentally all of these rules still work the same way in like Master Duel and in the TCG, and outside of some really small micro exceptions, I mean, we're playing the same stuff. The card pools might be different, the formats might be different, but I mean, if you like Yu-Gi-Oh, you should like playing it either way. And you should also respect why somebody might choose to play it in a specific way that works best for them. So for instance, Master Duel is a great solution for people who don't have a local card shop in their area, or maybe if they have to like travel an hour or more to get to the nearest card shop. Yeah, I think that Master Duel would be a preferable way to just consume Yu-Gi-Oh regularly if that's your situation. And it is a presumably cheaper way of playing the game, right? Like if you choose not to pay money, then yeah, you can just play Master Duel and grind and ultimately build a lot of different decks, and that's cool. And maybe it doesn't really matter to you that you're using a different format or have a slightly behind card pool, because I mean, a lot of people are just here to play Yu-Gi-Oh! They just kind of want to play their decks. And in the case of the TCG, I can see why somebody might prefer the physical kind of aspects of playing the game, right? Like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Digitally is totally fun, but nothing's gonna quite replace, having the cards in your hand, shuffling them, that sort of thing, playing the cards, putting them down, and also like sitting across the table from an opponent, interacting, right? And there's certainly a rush that comes from going to like regionals and YCS events. And this is something that I've actually preached on my channel for years and years. I still to this day say that every Yu-Gi-Oh player should make an attempt, if possible, to attend at least one YCS event. I think that they are a really great experience for just like learning about the broader game, learning about, how the game can be played at higher levels, and experiencing some cool things like, vendors or the token booth or just like the ready accessibility of trades. So I don't really know that this is something that really is like a better or worse situation. I think it's just a matter of two different ways to kind of engage with the same game and the same property. So yeah, when I see these memes and stuff, or I get like accusations about like liking one over another, or like if you play one, it makes you somehow invalid, that's where I kind of just have to get off the bus, because I don't think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really all that much different depending on how you consume it. Another thing that I would also probably add to this is that being good at Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a skill that transfers over pretty handily, right? We've seen players like Jesse Cotton, Ryan Yu, Joshua Smith, and several others see great success in both platforms, right? Like literally these are players who competed in Worlds for the TCG and also have like competed in Worlds or won YCS events or whatever. Like, and then also like the same thing for Master Duel, right? Like it's not a matter of like if you're a good player in one, you'll be a good player in another. Like it doesn't really change very much. I think that when you hear people kind of complaining or just sort of, insulting one another, I almost feel like it's maybe just the people who are very dissatisfied with their place in it, right? Like maybe it's the people who are bitter about, a recent ban list in the TCG hitting their favorite deck, or they're bitter about the fact that like something happened in Master Duel that they don't like. It's got a card like Max C and they hate that, and that makes it invalid somehow. But I think that most like true Yu-Gi-Oh players will enjoy both, and also if they're good at one, they will be good at the other. It's also kind of funny because it makes me think about like, man, where do Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links players fall in this? Because I feel like they've actually been experiencing this sort of like alienation or othering for many, many years. A lot of people don't really talk about the exclusive Duel Links players, but those types of players do exist as well, and they're also playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In a way that is totally valid. If anything, it's even more unique because like it's something that you can only play on your phone, right? So, or you can play it on the PC, but you know what I mean. Like it's something that you can play on your phone that you can't really do with the others because Master Duel is not that great on the phone. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really feel like Yu-Gi-Oh is something that has to be a thing that you judge someone for like how they consume it. We're all playing Yu-Gi-Oh at the end of the day. And also, Yu-Gi-Oh is a niche, right? Like we got to stick together, man. Like for real. Yu-Gi-Oh is not a game that's like played by millions and millions and millions of people. It's a game that is played by people who, are really passionate and have been playing it for years. And so, to attack each other for this sort of thing just feels really counterproductive. I mean, it's like tearing people apart from the inside. We already have plenty of situations where like outsiders don't understand Yu-Gi-Oh and they just perpetuate kind of false claims, right? Like, oh my God, Yu-Gi-Oh is so confusing and so hard and so bad, and it's all this stuff. And like these are people who maybe quit like 15 years ago and don't even know what's going on, and they're just simply trashing Yu-Gi-Oh for the sake of. I think that if that's happening, then the least we could do is like support everybody who's just currently playing Yu-Gi-Oh however they choose to play it, right? So anyways, yeah, to the people who, leave comments saying that like I've somehow betrayed the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG for Master Duel, or that, my opinions on one or the other are like invalid. I play both. I have played both. I will continue to play both. I love both. Like literally the vast majority of my Yu-Gi-Oh time has been on the TCG, and I have not quit it. I have plenty of cards surrounding me, like literally off frame. They're everywhere. Like I said, I mean, I've got like this box full of several decks. I've got this box of decks. I've got like there's so like I have cards. Like it's not, I don't like one or another more. I don't think one or another is more or less invalid. Play what fits your lifestyle, play what fits your preference, play both. I think a lot of people just play both and they're happy. So anyways, I want to know if you guys have seen or experienced this sort of, I don't want to call it discrimination, but it can feel like that. If you've seen this happen and where you think it comes from, do you think that there's any validity to it? How do you, respond whenever that sort of accusation comes up? Because I just don't think that I really have any tolerance for it. I just find it really silly. So yeah, I will continue to just talk about Yu-Gi-Oh as Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the matters. I do like to read and respond to the comments on this channel, and I've made some other videos recently about why I think card prices should never be $100, for instance. But also, I've made videos about problems I have with Master Duel Links formats and stuff like that. So yeah, be sure to watch one of those if you want, and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff. Happy holidays. I'll see you guys in the next one. Fast turn.